Awesome. So let's take a look at these sentences on the board. Mary and Samantha took the bus. Joe and Brian waited for the train. So I'm going to give you guys whiteboard tools and highlight the words that need to be capitalized. Highlight the words that need to be capitalized. There we go. Mary, Samantha, Joe, and Brian. Why do we have to capitalize those? Why do we need to capitalize those? Yeah, because it's the name of people. We always capitalize names. Names are important. That's why we capitalize those. Okay, so you will see one of these sentences on your daily dive. So make sure you look at your daily dive, whichever sentence you see, make sure you select the option that has the correct words capitalized, and those are the names. Okay, so let's see some confidence levels. What is your confidence level with knowing when to capitalize stuff? Confidence levels. Confidence levels. I see 6 responses. Where's everybody else? Anasty, let me know in the chat box your confidence level. Imani, use those polling tools. Keon, polling tools. Kyle, polling tools. Margaret, tell me in the chat box. Maya, polling tools. Let's use those polling tools to show me your confidence level with knowing how or when to capitalize stuff. Thank you, Anasty. All right. Awesome. I always record these sessions and I post them in the content as well as in the weekly announcements. We are so close to spring break, and I know you guys are just counting down to spring break, but we got to finish strong. And we're going to continue to work on the noun and verb phrases quiz today and probably finish it. Last period finished it, so tomorrow we'll do something else. You're fading away, me too. So before you go to spring break, make sure you have a score in the gradebook for the About Me quiz, the summary quiz, and the noun and verb phrases quiz. I have sent emails for both of the first 2 quizzes with links to the quiz and links to the recordings as well. Okay, so check your school email and use those emails and those recordings if you need to complete those 2 assignments. If you are missing anything from the noun and verb phrases quiz, watch the recordings from this week for that. Spring break is next week. We have spring break until April 1st, so we'll come back on April 2nd. I will have office hours on Friday at 2 p.m. So if you have any questions before you go off on into spring break, please stop by and in my office hours and let me know. On question 11. Is that right? I don't think this class got to question 12. Right? Yes. Okay. So, question 11 was to underline the verb phrase, and the I will have been studying Italian for 3 years is the question that's on your quiz for that. So make sure you have will have been studying underlined or highlighted or bolded or whatever you're doing to indicate that you know what the verb phrase is. Okay. So let's move on to question 12. There we go. And I'm going to have you guys write your own verb phrases on the board. So remember, verbs demonstrate an action, and when combined with linking verbs or helping verbs, they're sometimes called, then they form verb phrases. So the man was texting on his phone. Was texting is our verb phrase. So I want you guys to write your own verb phrases on the board. And we did this yesterday with noun phrases, but we're going to do it again with verb phrases. And I think I'm going to try and remember the sentence I used yesterday. What did I write yesterday? My blue travel mug is sitting on my desk. That was, I believe, the sentence I used yesterday. So I'm going to highlight my verb phrase is sitting. There we go. All right, so Emily was sitting on the swing. So let's highlight the verb phrase because I need to make sure you guys know and understand what they are. Let's get some more examples on the board. Let's get some more. It's nobody try and move it. Just highlight it. It was there. There we go. Was sitting. Fantastic. All right. Anybody else? Let's get more examples on the board. I want more than one student example. We can do it. There's 20 people in this room. Okay, Dave was test driving his new car. All right. So what's our verb phrase? Kat, I'm glad you're here. Was test driving. There we go. That's our verb phrase. Was test driving. Let's get some more examples. I like when there's lots of examples. That sucks if that's true. My dog peed on my bed, that's why I'm late. But we need a verb phrase. So, what's our verb? We have a verb in there. Right, peed is the verb. So we need a verb phrase. So we can we change it a little to make sure it has a verb phrase? On my bed is a prepositional phrase. So you could say, my dog had peed on my bed. Because they did it in the past, right? Even though it was only a few minutes ago. You can't change it for some reason. Come on, new row. There we go. I'll change it.
Yeah, this is all becoming so weird. Like I'm like editing it, but it's not letting me like change it. It's just letting me like move the position of it.
There we go. It lets me change it for some reason. I don't know why new row is weird with the tools sometimes, but we got it. So now let's highlight the verb phrase on the board there. Can we highlight our verb phrase? Your chat keeps not opening. What is going on with new row today? Yesterday in fourth period, the chat started to get kind of laggy. Did you guys notice anything weird in fourth period yesterday? Yeah, so maybe new row hasn't figured their stuff out yet. So, okay, so had peed is our verb phrase for that one. Okay, so we got lots of examples on the board. Fantastic. So in your quiz, make sure you highlight the was texting verb phrase. And now let's move on to independent and dependent clauses. And you're right, the name does need to be capitalized in that sentence. Thank you for that. Great looking out. Okay. You guys ready for independent and dependent clauses now? Yes. Okay. So question 13 is a matching question. So you're matching up the type of clause, independent or dependent, with its definition. We're only talking about two types of clauses. An independent clause can stand alone as a sentence. It expresses a complete thought. Okay, so an independent clause can stand alone as a sentence. You guys have heard this word before, right? Independent. We all want to be independent, right? Eventually. Of course, yeah. And what does that mean when you're independent? As an independent person, what can you do? You can be by yourself. Yeah. What else? Do things by yourself. Yep. You can take care of yourself. You can cook your own meals. You can pay your own bills. You can take care of yourself, right? You can stand alone. You can find solutions for yourself. Yes. So, independent clauses can also take care of themselves. They can stand alone as a sentence. They make sense all by themselves. They express a complete thought. Do you guys know what this means when you say it expresses a complete thought? Does that make sense? I'm going to give you guys polling tools because it doesn't always make sense to everybody, and that's okay. So if this makes sense to you, give me a green check. If this doesn't make sense to you, give me a red X. There's no wrong answer for this. If you don't understand it, that's fine. That just tells me I need to explain it better. So if the fact that independent clauses express a complete thought, if that makes sense to you, give me a green check. If it doesn't make sense to you and you want me to explain it, I'm going to explain it anyway. But if you really want me to explain it, give me a red X. Independent clauses express a complete thought. Does that make sense in your brain? Does your brain understand that? Can you wrap your head around it? Looks like I'm getting mostly green checks, but I do have a couple red X's. I'm going to explain it anyway. So when we say an independent clause expresses a complete thought, that's okay. I shut it off. It's okay. It means that it makes sense by itself. We don't need anything else added to make it make sense. Okay, so for example, let's say we're going to use this example. My dog peed on my bed. Okay, that is an independent clause. It's a complete sentence. We have, and remember, clauses need both a subject and a verb. So both of these will have both a subject and a verb. We have my dog as our subject, peed as our verb, right? My dog peed on my bed. It's a complete thought. We know what happened. We know the subject did something. Yeah? Makes sense, right? Yes, no, maybe so? Yes. Okay. So sometimes this is tough to explain because dependent clauses can't stand alone as a sentence and they don't express a complete thought. And when we're talking about expressing a complete thought, we're not talking about having all of the information about the subject because that would require lots of sentences. We're just talking about the one little piece. We don't need to know why the dog peed on the bed or what happened before the dog peed on the bed or whatever. We just know that's the information we have. The dog peed on the bed, right? Yeah. So Dependent clauses don't express a complete thought because you need some other piece of information to make it make sense. And we'll get to this on the next slide, but I'm going to give you a little preview. So, for example, if I said, before my dog peed on my bed, come on, Nero. There we go. That is a dependent clause because we have this extra word, which we're going to learn about on the next slide. Okay. But because we have this word, we need something else to express this complete thought, because the complete thought that this is trying to express is not necessarily about the dog peeing on the bed. It's something happened before, and we don't have that information. Does that make sense? That this is not a complete thought. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. All right, so question 13, match up those definitions with the types of clauses. And then we're going to look at the next slide and talk more about what kind of word this is and why it makes these otherwise complete sentences into dependent clauses. Okay? Okay. So, dependent clauses are going to start with something that is going to tell you you need more information. Okay. We're going to focus on subordinating conjunctions in this class. Dependent clauses can also start with relative pronouns, interrogative pronouns, or expletives, but we're not going to worry about these. We're only going to worry about the subordinating conjunction part because we don't have time to dig deep into these other ones. Okay. And this is the one you're going to see most often. Okay. Okay. So a subordinating conjunction are words like after, although, as, because, before, if, since, when, where, while, things like that. They're words that when you add them to the beginning of a clause, it makes it dependent because we need more information for that to then make sense. Okay. So question 14, subordinating conjunction is what you're choosing for that. Okay. Yes, no, maybe so. Okay. All right. So our next slide is going to be for questions 15 and 16. And we're going to identify independent clauses and dependent clauses so we can look at them in isolation. Okay. So I took away the whiteboard tools because I want to explain this next slide to you first. We have lots of clauses here. Some of them are independent, some of them are dependent. We're going to do the first couple together, and then I'm going to let you identify the rest of them. Okay? The movie is thrilling. And remember, both types of clauses need both a subject and a verb, so they will all have subjects and verbs. But dependent clauses will have a subordinating conjunction. I see something in the chat box. Yes, cat, subordinating conjunction. Excuse me. So, what's our subject in this first? We're going to just label it just because that's what we've been doing. The movie, right? That's our subject. And then what's our verb? We have a main verb and a helping verb in this case, right? Is thrilling. So we have a verb phrase. We learned about verb phrases before. Okay. So we have our subject, we have our verb. Does this make sense all by itself? It expresses a complete thought. Right? We don't need to know why the movie is thrilling. We don't need to know what movie it was, because those need their own sentences, right? It just is, right? This sentence expresses a complete thought. The movie is thrilling. Okay. So because it expresses a complete thought, it's independent. It can stand alone by itself as a sentence. Okay. So this next clause, before I did, what's our subject? I is our subject, right? What's our verb? Did. Yep. There we go. So we have our subject and verb. All clauses will have both a subject and a verb. But now we have this word. What kind of word is this? We talked about it on the last slide. What kind of word is this? Subordinating conjunction. There we go. It is a subordinating conjunction. So it weakens what would otherwise be an independent clause. I did all by itself is perfectly fine as a sentence. I did expresses a complete thought. But when you add a subordinating conjunction to it, now it doesn't quite make sense. Before I did. You can feel it, right? When someone says that, if someone just walked into a room and said, before I did, you'd be like, what? What are you talking about? You need something else for it to make sense. Just saying before I did makes no sense. So yeah, it's dependent. There we go. So if you ever don't know what a word is, what part of speech a word is, what can you do? What can you do if you don't know what part of speech a word is? Because it might not be in your brain. You might not know for sure. What can you do if you don't know what part of speech a word is? It's not in your brain, so you can't pull anything out of your brain that's not there. You have no clue what kind of part of speech it is. What do you do? That is why you take notes, absolutely. But let's say you didn't take notes and you have no clue what kind of word that is. What do you do? I'm going to give you guys a hint. Yes, Kat, search it up. Look it up. I love dictionary.com. Okay, don't be afraid to look stuff up. The best skill that you could have is to be able to find information. Oh my goodness, Neuro, what are you doing? I don't know if you guys can see it flickering, but it's flickering for me. Let's try that again. There we go. Okay. So just, and I know we talked about this, so we already know what this is, but we're going to look it up anyway. So if you type in that word and you can look, there's lots of information. Sometimes it can be used as a preposition. Sometimes it can be used as an adverb. Sometimes it can be used as a conjunction. There we go. That's what we want. You were going to say you could beat up an old man or something to get answers. What if he doesn't know? That's not always going to help you. So if you look a word up and you see that it can be used as a conjunction and you're completing this lesson, it's going to be used as a conjunction because I'm not giving you any trick questions. Okay? Okay. So please look stuff up if you don't know. All right. And I feel like I'm going to sneeze. So I'm going to give you guys whiteboard tools so you can identify the rest of these. You don't have to label the subject and the verb unless you want to, if it helps you, because there's not a whole lot of room on this slide. So just highlight independent and dependent. There we go. And now my sneeze is gone. So you guys have whiteboard tools. So identify whether these are independent or dependent clauses. And if you guys want to, we can also highlight those subordinating conjunctions so we can see those, because that might be helpful too, to see those subordinating conjunctions. Anyone else want to highlight those subordinating conjunctions? It'll help them stick out to us. And I'll highlight the one we did together. Do we see any other subordinating conjunctions? Let's see. We have before school begins, dependent. Reed lost his book. Jackson frantically searched for his homework, independent. When Tristan played football, dependent. Molly muttered the poem, independent. Jeremy flattened the dough, independent. Because I want ice cream, dependent. When we hesitated. What is that? When we hesitated. Is that a complete thought? Nope, it's not a complete thought. Not at all. So let's get rid of that one. It's not independent. There we go. Because we have that when in front of it. If someone said we hesitated, that's a complete thought. That makes sense. We hesitated. But if someone says when we hesitated, then you need more information. Okay, makes sense so far? And you guys did a great job identifying the subject and the verb, except in 5 and 6. That last noun is not the subject. We only have one subject, and that is Jeremy and Molly, and these two. The dough and the poem would be the object. Remember, subject, verb, object. Okay? That's okay. And we need to think of the way we write and the way we speak differently. Okay? Because we don't always speak exactly the way we should be writing. We use slang, we use words that don't necessarily make sense to everybody. We'll speak in partial sentences or fragments, right? And it's okay when you're writing something to start out writing the way you talk, because that's something, right? That is something. And I would much rather have something on the page than nothing. Okay? And then after you get something on the page, then you can edit it, because you can't edit a blank page. You got to get something on there first. All right? Okay. So, awesome. Everyone understand this? So in your quiz, questions 15 and 16, questions 15 and 16, you're identifying the independent and dependent clauses, just like this. Same sentences. Okay? Or same clauses, I should say, because they're not all sentences. Question 15 and 16. So no trick questions. All right, everybody good? If you see a subordinating conjunction, it's going to be dependent. Yeah, okay. So now, the last 4 questions on 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. In the in-class section, you're identifying independent and dependent clauses. So questions 17, 18, 19, and 20 will ask you to highlight either an independent clause from that sentence or a dependent clause from that sentence. Okay, so now we have compound sentences, complex sentences, whatever you want to call them. And each of these sentences will have one independent clause and one dependent clause. So the entire thing is not an independent clause. Because we have two different types of clauses, it's now a complex or compound sentence. Okay, so we have to identify the two different parts. Does that make sense so far? Yes, no, maybe so. Okay. So we're going to do the first one together, and I'm going to cover up these so we only focus on one at a time, because I don't want anyone to get overwhelmed or anything. So we're going to focus on one sentence right now. I was tired after working all day, so I decided to go to bed early. That is a sentence. It includes an independent clause and a dependent clause. So I want you to think of these like the independent clause is the adult and the dependent clause is the little kid that can't be by themselves. And the subordinating conjunction is like the little kid holding on to the parent. Okay? So our dependent clause has their little hand gripping their independent clause because they can't be by themselves. Okay? Does that help? That helps me when I think of it that way. Okay. So if we look at this sentence, which part is the independent clause? Which part is independent? So if it was all by itself, it would be fine. Okay, Kat's got it. So our independent clause, and I'm going to highlight independent in green. I was tired after working all day. So if that was all by itself, and there was nothing after it, that could be a sentence all by itself. It makes sense. It can stand alone. Yeah, it makes sense. So it's independent. Our other half has what kind of word? And what kind of word is so? What kind of word is so? And Aaliyah, I'll come back to that in just a second. A subordinating conjunction. Awesome. Okay. So in this class, I'm not trying to trick you guys or anything. Oh my goodness. So when you see, oh my goodness, what is going on? Okay. Yeah, if it started with after, that would be different. So, and I mean, I'm not trying to trick you guys. So if after working all day was all by itself, we could see that was a dependent clause. It's weird. After can be used in lots of different ways. So let's look at after in the dictionary. Let me share my screen. Oh no, we're out of time. Okay, so let's look at after real quick. It can be used as a lot of different things. Preposition. So in this case, it's a prepositional object for that independent clause. It could be used as an adverb, an adjective. It could be used as a conjunction as well, but not in this case. In this case, it's a prepositional object. Do you guys remember when we talked about those? Subject, verb, object. So this is subject, verb, and then object. Yeah? So even in this case, subject, verb, prepositional object. So this is the thing that's not labeled. Make sense? Yes. Okay. So we're out of time. So we will pick up from here tomorrow. No problem, because we got plenty of time. And we'll finish this up tomorrow. All right. Have a wonderful day. Let me know. You're getting the hang of it? Awesome. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll finish this up tomorrow. Okay. Bye.